So, hi everyone. Last Friday, February the 4th, I launched an interview with the niece of Dr. Robert Moore, the man behind the King Warrior Magician Lover system of archetypes. He developed that together with his colleague Douglas Gillette, but I consider him to be the main guy. I released an interview with her where she was sharing the real story about his tragic death back in 2016. And now that we have cleared his name and his legacy, I'm feeling a lot of inspiration to have conversations with men about what the work and life of this great man has meant to them. And so I'm intending now to have a couple of Robert Moore legacy conversations. And I'm starting here today with a man that I know pretty well by now, Ruben in the Netherlands, who came into Reclaiming the Throne, the men's work organization that I founded in 2014, back in 2018. And some of you may know him already, but I think it's fair to say that you were on the hunt for some kind of mentoring, some kind of purpose in life. And, you came into connection with Reclaiming the Throne, though you also came into connection with these archetypes. And I want to have this conversation with you about what this work has meant for you. And then I also intend to speak a little bit with you at the end about what we are looking at creating for you guys. Tell me, you've shared with me in brief in the past that I was hosting some kind of king ritual.
Yes.
On a webinar, and you were kind of blown away by it. Tell me more about what happened there.
Yeah, that's the one that I was thinking about, actually. I was invited to this archetypal sort of webinar by K.O. Carlto, and I didn't know what to expect, but I felt this ought to be good. I had decided that when he would invite me for something, when I did have money, I would join, because it was broke and too flying to do it. And the moment that you started that drop-in, which you've never repeated again, and I actually anticipated I would get it at my own initiation, and if not then at least later at some other point, but it never reoccurred. And it was this experience of that you guided us towards our throne room, and there was the king seated, and we would meet this king, and just being in that place inside of me, see, I'm already making these sort of gestures, the central point of my being, I just felt this overflowing love and grandeur and support and strength in me. And I realized when I was feeling all this, right now I would call it numinous energy in my system, all this royal, regal, self-respecting, dignified energy, that this, I've never felt that before. What? How could I have lived my life and never experienced something like that? And not even knowing that I was hungering for it. And there it was, all this time inside of me. And so that was really one of the major factors that convinced me, or compelled me, pulled me in towards the work. I had already decided this is what I need, but that was the proof that I would get it, and that I would get those long lost parts of me that I didn't know I had, and I didn't know where I put those, that I would be reconnected with those.
What was the feeling as you were in this inner throne room and you were connecting with this king? Was it, I'm looking for, was it one of familiarity, or did it feel like a new encounter?
Mm-hmm. Well, there was this sense of complete acceptance, and like I could feel him looking at me and I could sense his benevolence, his goodness in his gaze, in his eyes. And he just affirmed me, said, I see you. You're good. Welcome.
Are you feeling him now when you're closing your eyes?
Yeah. Tapping into that source.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you asked me if he was familiar. It was as if this external figure, which ironically, of course, is internal in me, because I could externalize him, I could receive it. And I was open to that form of blessing. And there is the eternal paradox of the inner world and the outer. And there's a crossover, because I experienced him as an external force, like a power that I could meet, right? But it was inside of me at the same time. So the inner and outer world in that moment seemed to coalesce. And I just felt really whole.
Did it last? Or was it just there and then?
Well, it was more of like the taste had such a sweet, powerful, inspiring promise. There was no way I could miss out on that. Yeah. And
Good.
why is that? So this is very interesting about my own story. I've tried to self-initiate and regulate my system for years, and I've tried to fight loose from my mother and really try to separate the bond between her and I, as there was no father figure. And I tried to just do it with smoking weed and partying, and I did a lot of drugs, and eventually I went into the women cascade, and I experimented with a lot of drugs, and nothing really seemed to give this sense of, well, it took me a while, but there I am. And what I noticed with Reclaiming Your Throne, and also in particular with KO, he ignited a flame inside of me that was really part of my masculine essence. And I had longed for masculine guidance all these years without knowing that it was that. So when I finally, in the grand scheme of things, joined Reclaim, I suddenly realized all these years I was lost. And I didn't even know what it was that I was looking for. But now I found it.
Great. Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like there was for you in the moment of encountering this archetypal reality inside of you a place of recognition and coming home.
Yes.
And when did you learn about Robert Moore?
Well, KO, him being the kind of eccentric, odd, penetrating figure that he was, he just dropped the bomb of, yeah, I'm a men's coach. I work with archetypes. Or, yeah, I can do the accent as well as he can, his own voice, after all. And I was like, archetypes? Well, I have no idea what that entails, but it sure sounds fascinating. And well, years later down the road, I realized that the world of archetypes is something that I've really, really immersed myself in for years, loving fairy tales, mythology, symbolism. And that was really my world. And actually the more real reality than scientific reality. So it was just a concept that I had to translate to my inner own world and navigation. It was already part of me. And I believe it's part of all of us. And it's maybe the more lover magician kind of guys who come to Reclaim, who have an immediate sense of these powers, them being the mystics. And I was definitely one of those.
Yeah. So what do you think it is about you and your temperament, your personality, your history that makes this particular lens on life and the psyche be so strongly resonant?
Well, there are several factors. One is that it simply gives more tangibility and relatability to the world of the unconscious, of my own inner realm, so I could navigate it more clearly. And for me, it just spoke to me from a place that I was already resonant in. So if I would join Garrett White's warrior training, I would probably be not even attracted to it because it was too rigid, too warrior, too hard, too challenging for me to shift to such a mode of being out of nowhere. Even though I secretly would want that, I could never acknowledge it to myself because it was too nice, too passive, too self-deceptive, too weak. And so the lens of the archetypes, being it more the entry point of the mystic, it gave me the chance to orient into the world in a way that was close to home, and then realizing, if I want to actually become the more integrated man, I need to also go to the warrior. So I came in there from the opposite side, from the lover side.
And this work, obviously, you mentioned Garrett White, the founder of Wake Up Warrior. And obviously he runs a men's work organization that is very focused on the warrior archetype. But this system is 4 archetypes: king, warrior, magician, lover.
Yeah.
And what is your relationship to the system versus, like, you're talking about entering through the gateway of the lover into the warrior, but what is it about being in some kind of connection with all 4 of them that's important to you?
Well, if we talk about the 4, the most powerful thing that comes out of that equation is the point where they all coalesce and fall into each other. And that point of wholeness, of integration, of having all those qualities integrated, that pinnacle, I felt, I got a clear sense that pinnacle is actually the mode of being that I wanted to embody, which included all the sensitive, receptive, loving energies of the lover and the analytical brilliance of the magician, right? And the power and service of the warrior and the king. All of those, even though I lacked, of course, the warrior and the king severely and was in all kinds of shadow traps, so to say. It really came together in that, in the place where they all come together, where the archetypes become actually a single point of consciousness, where they are all subsumed in that point. And this could be, people have identified this single point as it being the hunter, right? He provides, he's connected to nature, he's the mystic, but he can fucking fight, right? The hunter is sort of the wild man. And
I've never heard that before, that the hunter is the coming together of all 4.
For example, and you may call them differently.
Okay.
But there is a sort of overarching, almost emblematic power, right? An archetype that combines all of them. And we never really discuss that particularly with terminology in Reclaiming Your Throne, but we always discuss how they all come together, bridging the warrior and the lover, right? And then from the underworld, we get all the unconscious material from the magician, and then we move towards the king.
And that's our model. Yeah.
That principle is the let's say method or model that gives me not only insight in the warrior and the lover, the boundaries and the merging but actually how to overcome that separation by getting up all those exiled parts and meeting at the top. There's no need to differentiate and to embody one or the other. It just helps, of course, to switch consciously. That's important, but it really.
What do you mean it's no need to embody one or the other?
Well,
Sure. Yeah.
It is not necessary per se to keep switching like a bipolar person. You can actually embody strength and vulnerability at the same time.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Right. And as we do this, what I love is that I can consciously choose. This demands warrior. This approach needs my sharpness and discipline. Mm-hmm. And before that, I couldn't tap into that energy at all because I was befuddled in the chaos. And to have the ability to say, this must happen now, and I will take care of it.
Tell me a little bit more about your experience with Robert Moore, more specifically. I know that you've been studying quite a few of his books, and what are the qualities that you feel transmit to you, and what are you learning from that man?
Well, I would say that the thing that comes to me from him is basically the legacy through you. And my introduction to the field, to the work, to the archetypes and how they function, I have had those imprints from you and among other men. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is basically the principle of handing over these modes of being to the immediate man in line of the lineage. Mm-hmm. And to have that imprint, and then the one dies, and it's given forth, and so that transmission feels like a really essential part of how the work develops, how men keep integrating and keep adding stuff.
Yeah.
So that lineage feels very relevant. Right, it goes back to Jung and way beyond. Actually, it's a very
we can go way back to the Greek philosophers, and they probably were inspired by something prior as well. So,
well, the Greek philosophers were actually kind of rational, right? And this is a lineage of mysticism, and these two are somewhat opposed. So I won't get into that.
Yeah, well, Jung was very inspired by Greek philosophers like Plato and Heraclitus.
Yeah, but Plato isn't a rationalist. Plato is more of a mystic.
No, but they're from Greek philosophers.
It's true. Yeah. But pedantics aside, classic Greek philosophy is about rationalism, right? It's very enlightenment based. It's not a mysticism.
Sure.
Well, anyway, if we take a look at Robert Moore, I have 3 of his books, and 4th is still on my list. And, what I find about Robert Moore is that and when I listen to him, he has this, what is it, Texan accent or something? It's so beautiful. It's like, there was a comment on YouTube that just said, give this man a banjo and leave him, right? It's like, just...
He speaks a bit like a man who you wouldn't expect... those words from.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing with, for example, Facing the Dragon and the Archetype of Initiation is that they're based on lectures. Now, he speaks well, but I'm generally opposed to that sort of reformulation in books. Now, what strikes me and particularly King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, he has a very solid sense of how the psyche works with archetypes, very Jungian, neo-Jungian, and how he synthesizes that as well. He is very neo-Jungian. He's not a classical Jungian analyst, right? He's synthesizing all that information. And what strikes me is that one of his main points is we must overcome the dragon of grandiosity, which is splitting apart our nation and turning neighbors against neighbors. Yes. So we see this in organizations and religious institutes, and it's like, we are right and you're wrong, and so we demonize you and we must destroy you because you are the other. And that's he's very much into, well, hold your horses, accept that these are parts inside of yourself. And as long as we keep fighting and demonizing like this, there will be a continuous self-destruction. He is actually really advocating and warning against the imminent doom that we face if we don't overcome this psychological phenomenon.
And I think we're actually in the process that he was predicting.
Yeah, do or die. It's
right here. And these monster boys that have been said to rule the world, they are now truly revealing their true colors.
It's worse than I anticipated 10 years back.
Yeah.
It's
and to see men like Macron and Trudeau, for instance, right now, these like young, fairly not super young. Trudeau is like 50. I don't know how Macron is, but it doesn't seem like he's 50. He seemed like he's in his 20s, you know. And here we have men who are clearly weak and who have they're weak in the conventional sense. They don't have a healthy psyche. But as we know from Robert Moore, when we don't have a healthy and well put together psyche, harmonious whole psyche, then these archetypes, they flow through and they take us as the dragon of grandiosity takes us.
Exactly.
And we can see this in these leaders right now. And we're not talking about a couple, we're talking about like most of them, you know. And
this is the real pandemic, I would say, actually.
Yeah, it's not the pandemic of the YouTube censors me if I say stuff like that because of this problem. And
Quod era demonstrandum.
Yeah, so yeah, it's like everyone's a kid and you're pretending to be a grown-up.
Yep. But Robert Moore gives a solution. He does. Because in that other book, The Archetype of Initiation, he actually combines the work from von Gennep and Merciliade and these other scholars on initiation, and he puts those things together and really works out the benefits and requirements of proper initiation. And of course, outlining that we lack that severely, and that may actually lead to monster boys.
It has led to monster boys.
Yeah.
We're in that reality right now.
I once had a dream that said integrate initiation into elementary school. Mandatory.
That would be excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. I also once had the thought to work with Arnie Rubinstein with that to really make that flow, and I assume that he would want nothing more. But instead I've committed myself to just working one-on-one and helping guys just integrate on a personal level. It's more my thing.
Yeah, and you're still young, Ruben.
Young and grandiose. Well, not as much as when I begun, huh?
We've had a couple of rounds with that.
Yes.
But then again, you know, I've had rounds with my guides and mentors and teachers as well. It's part of the territory. An integrated psyche moves so easily towards grandiosity and imaginations of being bigger or more special than we actually have deserved in terms of our real life experience. And the more unintegrated we become as individuals, and when you see the culture at large, how celebrated immaturity is and how demonized maturity is.
Weakness, actually.
Weakness. Yeah, weakness. Conformity is now a virtue. If you're an independent critical thinker who's autonomous and sovereign, you're somehow, you know, a demon along the thinking of the mainstream culture. And this, of course, is the psychosis that we're living in right now, as Matthias Sussman talks about, the mass formation psychosis. But this, when a man becomes grandiose, sooner or later, his soul or hers constellates the circumstances for their humbling. And what happens when a whole species becomes grandiose? Well, that's going to be a hell of a humbling process. And when you don't understand that, when a person doesn't understand the teachings of Dr. Robert Moore on grandiosity, it's hubris and nemesis. That's what it is. And you're swelling, inflating like a hot air balloon with hubris, and then you pop and you fall to the ground and there's nothing left. So
that's a blessing too, because once you're down and you hit the ground, that ground is actually the ground. You're not in the air. There's no fantasy about that. It may be rough. At least at that point, you know where you are.
Yeah, and humility etymologically stems from the word for soil, humus,
Yes.
So you need to be close to the ground in order to have a solid foundation for kingship. And
yes.
And when we're looking at our leaders swell like these hot air balloons that are just leaning into the camera and saying these cruel and twisted psychopathic things, as if we were in a very different part of human history, but here we are watching it happen. This is really, as far as I'm concerned, this is the most critical insight that Robert Moore has to give us. The way that we can identify what is actually powering this kind of sociopathic or even psychopathic leadership from this kind of monster boy condition, and what can be done about it. And as you say, it is an initiation, but how the hell are we going to get these men initiated? Do you have any ideas on this?
Well, the first thing is resistance. I don't want to change. Die? My old self die? My old self is perfectly fine. All my addictions and habits and self-sabotage? No. I live on those things. It's my only way of being, actually.
Yeah.
Don't take that away from me. And really, in terms of that is exactly what's making marketing or communication about this so difficult. And particularly when people don't want to change or are in positions of power, but exactly because of those behaviors.
Yeah. A lot of the time, the immature don't want to become mature because
yes,
the cost is severe to their sense of pride and identity.
Yes, until there's no way out. Until there's, well, I've tried everything, and I even went to an acupuncture therapist, that sort of thing. And then it's like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm done. There's nothing.
I went to a holistic medicine practitioner and I feel so ashamed. Fuck! Okay, after that little intermission, let's return to where we started on Friday, Marina and myself. So Robert Moore, he died in 2016, and the official story obviously was that he shot his wife and then killed himself. And when you go to the interview that I did with Marina on Friday, you will realize that this is impossible. The forensics analysis it doesn't in any way support this narrative. And I recommend and urge you, actually, if you care about men's work, if you care about depth psychology, if you care about Dr. Moore's legacy, then watch the video. I'll pop a link in the YouTube video here, top right corner now. And I guess then, Ruben, since you arrived on the scene in 2018, you didn't really have a relationship to being shocked or in any way discouraged by what happened?
No.
So I guess this is a story that you don't fully relate to. This need to sort of redeem
I
him.
trusted the man. I mean, the story didn't make sense in the first place. It would be concerning if a man who we all trusted and looked up to for guidance turned out to be mad and you know, in some sort of evil way, you know, was taken by archetypal energies that he was actually trying to protect us from. That would be really bad, but it didn't make sense, and I just felt the power of the work regardless.
Yeah.
So I trusted it.
So you weren't at any point concerned about the integrity of the lineage?
I had some moments of, wait, what? What? I mean, how is that possible? So it gave me a little disturbance in my heart, but I have felt the work and the power, and I felt myself rapidly changing. I mean, I was a fucking lost boy who was just looking for some flotsam to grab onto in an ocean of chaos. Really, and you know, and then it finally dawned. So, I mean, that just is, for me, proof of the work. And it didn't diminish my experience and findings and growth in any way. It only concerned me of, is that really the man that it doesn't sound like the man I thought he was.
Yeah, that was the recurring experience that so many people had when they heard this news in the first place. So before we shift to talking a little bit about what we have going on, what would the number one takeaway that you get from Dr. Moore's legacy be?
The work of Robert Moore has laid a deep foundation in my system on which I can build everything else. All my new findings, conclusions, my own maps of reality and models that I can use to make sense of the world, they're all rooted and founded on his lineage, through you, through Robert Moore, through Carl Jung. And it's all like a huge, it's like a monument that every generation is building. And I feel empowered to bring my gifts to the field in due time. And it's growing and cultivating. And I feel like me having this torch to carry it's something that helps me step forward into the world and proclaim that this work must be done if we are to live on a thriving planet together with our children and grandchildren. And without it, that purpose, I could never have truly put that to practice into such a degree.
Yeah. So in one sentence?
It helped me fucking rock and heal people and help them integrate their shadow.
Good.
To create a better world.
Good. Okay, so back in 2000 and was it 18 or 19? I don't really remember at this point. I also created Ultimate Intro to Masculine Archetypes. And this is a training that is designed to be, well, the ultimate introduction to this system. And back when I created it, I wasn't happy with how it came out initially, and I had to recreate the whole damn thing because my ambition, grandiose as it may sound, is that I wanted this to be the most powerful, the most impactful introduction to this work in the world. And well, that's where I landed in the end, that I felt comfortable saying that. And it was a lot of work. And well, many men have experienced it now. And we would like for a lot more men to experience it. So we have something, in honor of Dr. Moore's legacy, we have decided here in Reclaiming the Throne to actually give you Ultimate Intro on a donation basis at this point, at least through the month of February, and this is 2022 at this point. And in this way, be in a position of supporting this legacy, getting the work out even more widely, There are some small obstacles that you need to navigate. We need you to be committed and to be in resonance with our particular community. And so there will be a survey for you to go through. You will receive the link about this at the end. But we decided to do something a bit cool, Ruben. Even though, strictly speaking, this training can now be experienced without paying anything at all. Even though, of course, donations are welcome. We $1,000 would be great.
Do what your heart tells you to do.
Yeah, exactly. We decided to put on something. Why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about that?
Well, I'm going to host 6 one-hour Q&A sessions in which you can ask me everything you want to know about Carl Jung, the unconscious, the King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and how to integrate those in your own system and daily lives.
Good.
That's it.
So our real desire here, I mean, this man meant an enormous amount for me. And the work that I've been called to do in this world wouldn't be possible without Robert Moore. And now that Ruben is also part of this lineage and this tradition of initiation and working with these archetypes, we just want to see you guys thrive and prosper in a time that is really twisted and that is in deep lack of wisdom, in deep lack of maps for mature masculinity. And we're lost at sea. Our leaders, generally speaking, are utterly terrible. They are. I've seen a meme, and there are a lot of memes going around now. There's like a mimetic warfare, but one of the things that I've seen lately is, I agree with this meme where talking about animals, how they are more advanced than human beings because they don't elect their worst to lead the pack. And we literally have the worst human beings in our civilization, running countries, running organizations, monster boys at the helm. There are monster girls as well, but certainly the monster boys are in a clear majority. And we want to address this. And you know what? I would love to see us herald a whole new era of maturity for men, where initiation comes back in service of truth, justice, love, innocence, the feminine principle, and a more beautiful world. This is what a true man is here to do. A masculine, integrated, mature man is here to serve and protect the feminine principle and innocence, truth and justice, and the planet as a whole. This is why we're here. And the people in charge aren't doing any of these things. They're posturing as if they're doing it, but they're not. And this is what we're wanting to change. We're wanting to bring this kind of initiatory framework to you guys so that you can become the leaders that this world needs after we discard this dross that is currently in charge. So, yeah.
Because there's a nuance there too. Because we cannot just replace the leaders, because the system that they're embedded into and bribed with and motivated by financially, that would remain. But the solution here would be to raise those leaders from the ground up so they can hold positions in those institutions in the end, if this is at all possible, and become those leaders so that the paradigm shifts altogether, instead of just shooting down one of the elected leaders only to be replaced by another puppet who is simply functioning in the same system as it was.
Yeah. Yeah. And what is clear once you start diving deeper into the archetypal framework is that in any given tribe, any given group, any given nation, you will have archetypal configurations that are more attractive for you as a man or for you as a woman. And so while all of these archetypes will be vital to your well-being, your thriving, your wholeness, it will be probably quite clear to you where you belong in terms of purpose. Like a lot of the work that we do here in Reclaiming the Throne is quite heavily centered in the magician sector, where we are practicing profound alchemy and transforming what is painful and full of misery in your life to gifts. But there are so many other roles as well. And by really deepening into the work of Dr. Robert Moore, this gateway opens up, and it may become much clearer to you where you belong in this new and more beautiful world that we're all wanting to build. And that is my wish for you. Any last words that you want to share with the men and women watching, Ruben?
Just eager to get this started, really, and to just serve and to be there when people need me, when they ask me questions on how to run their lives. I'll be there to just mirror what I see and do what I can. So find all the information in the description and find all the dates and hours there as well. And be welcome.
Super. Thank you for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah. See you soon. Bye.
Are you a man who has discovered the power of working with the archetypes that live within you? Then I have a treat for you. After 10 years of researching and applying the King Warrior Magician Lover system of archetypes, I'm finally ready to share what I found. So this is a training for you if you want to turn theory into practice, if you want real world results, and you want to grow the f*** up. If you're ready to do what it takes, brother, then welcome to the ultimate intro to Masculine Archetypes.